Always address the child's behavior and his learning separate from who he is as a human being. We're not here to fix the child, I always tell parents. We're here to enhance their possibilities, the possibilities of the future. Life is always changing, and people don't get that.
Hi, I'm Erik Weir, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Stuttering Your Way to Success. I'm here with my friend, my guest today is Dana Blackhurst. Dana, how are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing okay. School's just started opening. It's like preseason. I tell the parents, we really don't look to win in the beginning. We look to get the team set, everything.
Right.
We might go 2-2 in preseason, but it gets the team rolled out. So, kids change, everybody changes, and teachers do during the summer, and so people forget that kids are little adults growing up and they change.
Absolutely. So you're the headmaster at Chandler School. So tell me about Chandler School. What makes it unique?
Chandler School is sort of an interesting story. I never finished high school, and I failed the GED, and I think Erskine College's only graduate without a high school diploma. I got it when I was 50. I got my real diploma. Fort Wayne Northrop decided to honor me, and they went back and used some of my college credits to give me a high school diploma.
Oh, that's great.
And I have a few honorary ones. But I told Mrs. Chandler one time that if I ever get a chance to have a school of my own, I'll name it after her, and that's how it got named, because she hid my transcripts and everything away from the admissions department. Roddy Gray and Bill Lassane, they were on board, and then President Bell found out about 3 weeks later and said, as long as I behave, I'm in school, but as soon as my grades slip, you're out.
Wow.
So that's how Chandler School came about. I came down from New England. I was up at the Carroll School, very prominent dyslexic school in America, and then I ran an international boarding school. And when that was over, I sort of had nothing to do, and I came back to Greenville, and a few of us guys got together that you could say, elbow drinking beer one night, and if you could design a school, what would you do? Well, the property came up on Augusta Street, I think.
Yeah.
They don't use road anymore, but the old Weiss mansion. And everyone said, that would be really cool. And I said, yeah, it would be. It was in foreclosure, and we were able to get it, and that's how the school started. So
That's fantastic. So how did Mrs. Chandler change your life?
Oh, Mama C, we call her. One, she let me get into college without a high school diploma at Erskine.
Right.
Now they're happy, but at the time that was sort of like a dark secret over there.
Right.
She used to get up in the morning and put her hand on my throat at 6 in the morning. I'd meet her and go, e, oo, try to learn vowels sounding. I was basically illiterate when they found me. I was severely, Grand Slam being dyslexic, and the rest is history.
How old were you at this time?
20.
Okay.
Late bloomer into college. I was did some sports to get there before I got there.
Hockey, correct?
Hockey, yeah. I played hockey. And
You were good at it, right?
Okay, yeah, I'd say I was okay. A few years on the national team of the U.S. and some other
National
things.
team, that's more than okay. That's good.
So, but I did some things in Canada and stuff. But I really quit school to play hockey for a career. I got recruited by the Port Huron Fog Cutters, and when you're 16, 18 years old and you come from like a mill town, or really we were very not the wealthiest. Offering your money at 16 is a big deal.
Right.
And so we thought that would happen. It didn't happen, but I was a flaky Freddie instead of a steady Eddie. You didn't know what goaltender would show up during the game that night.
Right.
Later on, they saw me play, and someone tried to recruit me to Denver and all sorts of stuff with the Pioneers, and one thing led to another, and I was cheating in a class, and the girl went and told the teacher. I gave her the grades orally, and I flunked it, and the teacher called me up and said some questions, and she goes, why didn't you put this down on the paper? And I said, I can't write, I can't spell. And the teacher, instead of doing something like punishment, she went, oh, you need to go see here. And then the bells went off. I called the alarms. And next thing I know, I was being tested by the guys in the white coats. And they said, you're not really slow. You're not mentally challenged. You're smart, or you're dyslexic. So I spent the next 30 days hiding in the Jefferson County school systems because I had to become an emancipated youth, because I was living out there to really step up high school, get a diploma, and then get into Denver. That was back in the 70s. They get around things. They're like Alabama in football.
Right,
so
there's a way,
you stayed with the family.
There's a will, there's a way, right?
And so, but, they did it. So many people have like stepped in and changed my life. But Mrs. Chandler is the main force that raised money for me at Erskine. I think she raised back then $189,000 is a lot in the 70s.
Yeah.
She raised for my college tuition. I was there in the summer. I was there 7.5 years. I decided at that time the program only had 4 kids on the dyslexic program, and there was 27. Only 6 of us ever graduated. Erskine made it tough on us. They didn't really give a lot of things because professors were like, "What's this thing of letting a kid take a test untimed or those type things?" And but they usually funnel you to get a social service degree, which is like the easiest way through college. And I didn't go there for that. I wanted to learn. And I said, "I'm going to be a teacher." And she says, "Oh, no, you're not." And I said, "Well, it's going to take a while." And sure enough, it did. And I can say I'm really proud to teach in the last black school in America, Carver Middle School, because I wasn't good enough to be with the white kids. I had to go teach there. I learned more there than anywhere, but the Belton Honeopath and the school systems there were like, we're not letting this kid who can't read and write be a school teacher. And so I ended up going to Carver with Dr. Reynolds, and that school changed my life. And I walked every day there. And I lived in Rabbit Stew in Due West.
Wow. So how did it change your life? I mean, I know
I mean,
what you're doing today,
somebody
but how
gave
do
me
you
a
feel?
chance.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it.
it's always been, a chance. People give you chances and stuff. And, my student teaching stuff was pretty amazing. Some of the things I did, but I learned more from the people that were there. I learned about Dr. Jesus, which was a paddle with little holes in it. Dr. Jesus is pretty good.
I had some time with one of those in
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
But I had to go from class to class, and Dr. Reynolds made me interview young mothers and elderly. That was really different how they treated you as a white person there. That was in the mid 70s, and I learned from the teachers how to do more with less. Being creative, doing stuff, and it was a wonderful experience. And then I went on, got lucky, and the rest is history. For me in education.
Right.
So Erskine, at that time, didn't think much, but then things changed, and now I'm sort of Erskine's one of their favorite sons.
Yeah.
Say.
That's fantastic. So I have a son, George, who
Right.
is one of your
Yeah.
students. So one of the children at Chandler School, and I can tell you that he experienced frustration
Right.
at another private school, and his learning style, as we've talked,
Right.
was just different than what was being offered to him. And he's very smart, but he's gone from not liking school to enjoying the process, enjoying coming. And he looks forward to going.
Yeah.
And the people that staff. So how do you create the environment? You talked about
Yeah,
you
the
can't make a
environment.
plan. But explain that to me, the environment.
Okay, the environment. First of all, I believe in failure. I'm a one-legged A honor roll. That's half of an F. Half down.
Right.
But the trick is the environment where you feel safe to fail. We want all our kids to fail. We produce frustration, knowing when to break. Frustration and working your way through a problem create long-term memory versus short-term memory.
Okay.
And that's what you're looking for when teaching kids is the struggle. Where do you help out? You don't give hints, because then you do that subconsciously. You want to help a kid, but it's short-term memory, and you want to make it easy for them. Well, that's not life. So you create a situation where you encourage failure, you look at their strengths, remediate the weaknesses,
Okay.
and you don't make them victimitis. There's no, we don't believe in, like you could say, the special ed approach and all that type stuff. We believe in hiring talent, teachers with 4-year degrees, and then we train them in this high octane, you could say, reading style called Orton Gillingham approach. And that's the approach that I got when I was 22. I left Erskine for a year and went to Kildonan boarding school to be trained be taught by Diana King, a world-renowned expert who's one of the first founders of, you could say, Orton Gillingham, which is a phonetic way to teach, which came out of the 20s for neurologists for stroke victims. And his wife goes, if that's working for stroke victims, wouldn't it work for these kids who are having problems with reading?
Right.
And that's how it all came about. It should
Interesting.
be taught in all schools. It's a medical model, and the reason it's there, but remember, medical models and universities don't talk. So the kids in the 50s and 60s that were well-to-do, there's a thing called no such thing as a poor dyslexic.
Right,
And
right.
you'd get the help. And it's finally arching over. I mean, education to me is one of the most monopolized political corruption things that ever been invented.
Education inflation too.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, it's called education inflation. Everyone's got to have a master's, all these type things. But it's really weird how we're living in the knowledge age versus conceptual age, and people haven't changed from the 20s and 30s of what America was like. We're still running the same model, and we're still doing the Privilege Act, which is like a disco club lining up to get into Harvard. These guys here, and only the privileged go. And if you look at schools, if you look at that way, 15% of the kids are going to Ivy League schools, the other 85% are somewhere else, and so you're banking all your talent on 15% of the Ivy League schools.
Right.
You leave 85 out there. There's so much talent out there. Look at
Right.
the testing and all that type of stuff is such a, I call it BS on judging a person. It's really hard to judge a little kid.
Right.
That was a given day test, and
Right.
so say you're a fast reader, and to get into law school, you've got to read, this thing that's the speed's on test. But what happens if you're a deep thinker and you don't do well in that test? You missed a lot of questions.
Right.
But don't you want, if you have a lawyer doing your case,
You want a deep thinker.
deep thinker, think it through. So the test is sort of an oxymoron. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Same thing for kids. Your son is a great little boy. He's curiosity. You feed that curiosity, but you also temper it like coaching. Some days is a good day, some days is a bad day, but always address the behavior, never the child, and the learning style. So that's sort of what we try to do, and it's it should be how all kids we feel should be taught. We're not a school for dyslexia. We're just a school that happens to use a 1950s, 60s curriculum with phonetics and keep it
fantastic.
simple.
Yeah, that's how I learned
Yeah.
with phonetics. And as a stutterer,
Yeah.
it was hard sometimes,
Yeah.
just get the words out. But I mean, but the concepts were.
Yeah, we're a big believer of, we read a lot of things. We're like an educational estuary. When it's working, it's really good. When it's not, it's like an estuary.
Right.
But big believer of Mike Leach. We follow a lot of Leachisms,
Okay.
like kill, keep it likable and learnable.
Okay. Okay.
Like he never had playbooks. He ran out 8 formations for his
Right,
players.
right.
And do that. So,
Right.
we're looking at different things for kids and how to build them up, and then say, now how are you going to put this in conception versus knowledge, and how to groom things along. We're a whole curriculum. So we're building all the way to 8th grade. And we also use the one-room schoolhouse approach. And we have one on our campus. We built a replica of the 1899 Bloomfield Schoolhouse.
Okay.
And so that represents the past. Chalkboard, an old-time chalkboard. Washington's up on the thing. We have a real bell in there. Pine-cut floors. I mean, there was, the only things that's modern really in there is what city code made us do, exit lights and stuff like that. So it's a reminder of a time in America when community, people work together, all there, but also there's a time to remind us that some people were not happy too. If you ever look at the picture of the kids,
Right. Right.
So there's 2 things going on at once in the one-room schoolhouse. But it's a unique thing how we have 8th graders working with the 1st graders, and all kids travel. So from the time you're a kindergartner, you travel. You don't stay with one teacher.
Okay.
So it's like a college campus where the kids can complain about you in between classes. It's a free will school. So like your son had to tell me, I want to come to your school.
Right.
Not the parents. Parents can't get a kid in. It's the child who has to say he wants to come. And we do a lot of observing, go to the other schools and visit, look at the kids. I think recesses are one of the biggest things that you look at. Watch a kid at recess. Learn about him. See that. We believe in a lot of field trips, hands-on. But recess is some of the biggest lessons you'll learn, because I want teachers to see that kid out there is running the playground. In the classroom, he's having a hard time reading, so don't judge him. That's
Right.
life.
Right.
Guys who are struggling in school.
Right.
David Letterman, guys who made C's run the world.
Right.
So,
That's right.
that-
That's right. Right. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So what made you? I mean, I was reading about you. You've won Educator of the Year multiple times.
They didn't check the spelling.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I remember I got Teacher of the Year, and that was in '83, and I was like, gosh, they didn't check the spelling, they didn't check this on the chalkboard. When I was doing my student teaching, I would get up at 6 in the morning, get into the school, and write everything out on the chalkboard before anyone came. To
Really?
do that, yeah, to make sure, so no one could throw holes at me. Wow. A lot of it was, if takes 24 hours in a day, you're 24 hours in the day of trying to do it. And learn, the skills of observing, learning. You take that and you try to put it out for kids too. I want kids to struggle and use their creative resources. I mean, there's 16 ways to Kevin Bacon. Same thing in school.
Right.
If you know that, there'll be hell to pay if you're in trouble at our school.
Right.
We let kids have it because we have a free trust campus. But like say George, we'll use George. He's got a homework assignment. Now, he gets to school 8 o'clock in the morning, and he goes to his teacher right away. Said, "You took him out to dinner last night."
Right.
That's life. Right. But he took the responsibility to go to that teacher before the day started, that I don't have the work done. That's the lesson.
Right.
To go be your own advocate, speak up, call a teacher. Our teachers are on call till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. That's what you want out of the kid.
Right.
I mean, you want the kids to learn how to navigate the world and to talk to your teachers and be able to speak up and say, I didn't get it done, or I got a part done, and I'll stay in at recess. Oh, okay.
Right.
But if you don't have it done, it's a phone call home, and it's mom, dad. You find out which parent they interrupt the most, and they get aggravated. I just want to let you know I didn't get my homework done, and I'm a responsible human being, and I will deal with my consequences. I'm just letting you know. Goodbye.
Okay.
They echo it. They hear it. They've got to say, I did it, not my mom and dad. I did it. I was the one that left the homework. I didn't get it done, And so you take responsibility, and then you got mutiny or something, and we keep track of all that type of stuff. But usually 1 or 2 times solves the trick.
Oh, sure.
Having to call and hear yourself say.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Now, why is it important to you to teach? I mean, why did you choose this field? Because it wouldn't think it'd be a natural thing, right?
The truth was, when I stopped playing hockey, I played a lot of rugby too. I just like learning. I like learning and the way we do it, the style. I guess I was sort of good at it. But I just have fun at it. I don't work. I've never worked a day in my life. So it's mainly the ideas I want. I don't want kids to grow up like me, that struggle, I guess, or that feeling on the inside. So I had nothing better to do, so I stuck with it.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. And you looks like for a while you were at the Camperdown.
I ran Camperdown. That's another long story, but I was there for 17 years. And basically there was a revolt one night. The school couldn't do certain things, and the parents lobbied to put me in as headmaster at 31 years old. And we had $500,000 in debt too.
Yeah,
yeah, that was like a big one. So it wasn't like I got the job. It was like everyone stood back and said, let Dana do it.
Right.
And the rest is history. So Camperdown, we had a good time. It's never been myself. It's always been the team around me, people that could help me with this, or I do this, you do that. And you judge kids. I mean, that's probably one of the strengths, being dyslexic or whatever you want to say, that power observation. I could see things, do things, and get people to do stuff that I can't do. I'm Tom Sawyer.
Right,
and build faculties, and we built an amazing curtain call school.
What do you look for when you hire somebody?
It's like dog show, in a minute.
Right.
I don't believe in degrees. I mean, I believe in degrees, but if I see a paper that says Harvard on it, and I see a paper that says Greenville Tech, 4-year teacher, who do you think I'm going to gravitate to? Harvard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Harvard.
Because it's Harvard. It's a brand.
Fair.
What if we had don't tell, don't say, and just interview the person? Now they have their transcripts. They're a college person.
Right.
You start looking at talent. You look at the candles in their eyes. You look at the way they handle. Then we throw them to the kids, and the kids have a say. It's like a quarterback in the NFL.
Okay, like the players.
Yeah, Brady, 6th-round pick. You don't know. Let's see what they do. And then the kids come back. The older kids tell me, they were pretty good, or I don't like them. What was bad about them? I hate teachers who try to be teachers. I just don't like teachers.
Right.
But I like people who are creative, interesting, opinionated. I'm a disagreeable person, versus agreeable person. I'm disagreeable in education because in the middle of the day I might say, let's just play capture the flag. I felt a tone differently.
Right.
For most parents, education is personal because you know how you got taught in school and stuff. So when you do something outside those lines, you're disagreeable. Like I was labeled Mike Leach of education because I want to say what I'm going to say, but I'll do something that's not heard of, changing the rhythm up, but it works because this is a kid's school. It's not our school, it's their school. And you got to feel for them just like you're a great working environment. So they need to be a part of the say and do. And kids take them outside, or this is happening or that's happening. They've been locked up for 2 days with rain. Let's go blow. First sunny day, let's go out there for 3 hours and just play. Work hard, play hard. The kids work. We push them very hard, especially in the upper grades. They get. This is probably politically incorrect because of, who he was, and he did some things that weren't nice. But it's a Bobby Knight year. So they're groomed for it. They just don't come in. They've been groomed for years of ready. By the time you're in 6th grade, it's like a broken leg. It's been fixed now. You can go on it. Don't try to hold back because you'll get hurt. but you play full on it. So the kids know what's expected. We have the relationship with them to push them, and we know what buttons to do. And each kid's different in how you do it. I might fuss at George, and it's be fair, but not equal. Everyone gets treated differently, how to push their buttons. Like you could do two things, and I treat you differently for the offense versus George. You know, you figure out what they are, like a coach. Because at one time, if a coach goes to the sideline and you yell at the quarterback for throwing an interception, he's lost, or you talk to him a different way. You got to know each kid, their personalities. So we're like a concierge type school. Each kid is looked through the eyes of 20 teachers, and we see different talents from them, and we have full faculty on Friday from 1 till 3:30. And it's like Congress. It's a discussion. I mean, teachers can tell me to go to hell,
Right.
because I want that passion. You know, at the end of the day, I always hold all the cards, but you want someone to fight for that kid that sees it a different way, that sees this. So you have this creative tension. That's good tension. Creative tension is good among the faculty, you know, and so you don't want destructive tension, but, you know, people that are saying this kid can do this kid can do that. Well, I didn't see that. So you have all these eyes on a kid. So that's why George is seen from many different people. And they all have one thing in common, you know, the mission statement to the child. Always address the child's behavior and his learning separate from who he is as a human being. We're not here to fix the child, I always tell parents. We're here to enhance their possibilities, the possibilities of the future. And, you know, everyone has possibilities. I mean, you told me you were a stutterer, and look what you're doing now. You got your own podcast. You're very well spoken. You know, life is always changing, and people don't get that.
Right.
There's a great book out. I think it's The Range of People. Tiger Woods versus Fedorov. You know, the parent that puts the golf club in versus hedgehog or narrow-minded cognitive thinking in one specialty versus the fox, who's got a lot of things, a lot of knowledge to solve the problem.
Right.
So we try to do that with kids, with expanding the way they think, different things. There's so many different things, like people get caught in their training. Like I think one part of the book was, say you're a firefighter. They've done this study. And you're a parachute firefighter in the mountains. And 73% of all deaths, I think, since 43 have been, they fail to, when they said, move, the fire's going to jump to the mountain. They're going to take their chainsaws and stuff with them. That slows them down. They get caught up in the flames. One guy who threw his stuff down lived. So they've learned stuff. And just like Navy guys have steel-toe shoes on their boots. Captain, take the boots off before you go in the water.
Right.
They drowned. We do that in education. We carry too many memories with us, and we don't learn how to forget things and do. Teachers should have the memory of a flea toward a child.
Oh, okay.
Just when he did this, that's great. So what? Forget about it. Next play. Because kids will pick up on that if you hold a grudge, or they can say it body language. So you look at that, and so that's some of the. I mean, school. There's offensive teaching, defensive teaching, different ways you root the classroom. Rope-a-dope, like Muhammad Ali, how to use the ring, how to use your presence walking. I do a lot of stuff on classroom stuff. I do an awful lot of stuff on that. I mean, I've been blessed. I mean, I don't know how, in education, but I think the last one was I was a headmaster or a creative headmaster or whatever for South Carolina and stuff. But it's the team you have. Hire creative people, but also hire different types of creative people. So they'll argue. They'll bring many things to the table when they see George. If we hire ourselves, we get ourselves. What is that song by Yes?
Right.
Surround yourself with yourself. You're going to get yourself. So
Great.
That's why I don't like some things in school. You know, I always tell kids the best answer. The only time you're really right in life is when you say you don't know. Because if you don't know, you really do know that you don't know. So you're right.
Right. You really do know that you don't know. That's right.
Yeah. So we tell the kids that all the time. And you know, like I got some kids here. It's a school where it's based on trust, very much a lot of trust. You know, and kids have trust given to them. They lose their trust. They don't have to they don't have to earn their trust. You know, so it's a West Point and a Stanford type educational setting, from strict guidelines to loose guidelines. Creative. We don't want to make a school basically the perimeter of a jailhouse, like a recreational prison.
Right.
It shouldn't be made that way. It should be their place, and it should be a free place to use the whole grounds for it. I mean, we use every part of the school's grounds. It's almost 4 acres. Everything's used.
Wow.
We want kids outside. We want kids outside moving, doing. It's what I think kids should have, that experience to have the freedom to be able to be trusted, but also at the same time know that this is an experience like Disney World. Disney makes an experience. Why can't schools be experiences for kids?
Right.
And so that's what we try to do.
So what do you tell a parent who has a child and they have a different learning style that's not being addressed at a school?
It depends. It's like you said, you size them up before they come in. You can tell what they are. If they're well-to-do people, I sort of push back quickly because I'm not into that as a school. Everyone gets treated the same way as you're a parent because you have some parents that are struggling, 2 mortgages to send their kid there. So other people have different gifts. So you make it equal playing field. First thing is, let's read the paperwork. We tell them, here's what we want to work on. Here's what we're going to do. We're putting a team, like a package together, like financial planning. So we want to pretend we'd ask you, and what do you want George to be when he's 25? Well, we look at 25 and plan backwards. How are we going to get him there? What's this here? How are we going to do his strength? And you don't pay me to be a yes person. You pay me to be that disagreeable person. Here's what I think. If you don't like it, that's fine. There's another school in town. I think capitalism is a great thing. So schools, there is a business to private schools. I hate that because it means you're elitist. But we talk to parents about the gifts. You're so lucky to have this kid. You got the funnest kid. You got a goat. You don't got a sheep, for God's sakes. Goats are fun. They'll make you mad. Right. They'll bring you emotion, but they're fun. Right. These are the fun kids. These are the kids that solve the problems that 90% of the other people can't find. They do. They're the uncommon learner. They're great. But you got to, some parents feel like it's the end of the world. We try to tell them, this is great. I think it's wonderful who your kid is. And then also remember, when you went to school, it's different than today, what kids have to learn. Because you have, parents that come in and say, well, I got through it. No. It's a different world, different dynamics. Everything's changing. I mean, I was right at the right spot at the right time. Today, I doubt if this could ever happen again. Education is a very interesting place where you got pharmaceuticals driving it, publishing companies driving. You got a lot of people driving stuff, but as far as I know, the alphabet hasn't changed.
No. How is AI going to change education?
Well, that's interesting because Erik Weir, one of our parents, just sold I think Pipeline Design, Consulting. He's coming in to teach kids how to build the computers, and he's on some big hotshot AI boards that they're trying to prevent what's coming.
Right.
They say it's serious
scary stuff, right.
Scary stuff. And so we're looking at that in a very interesting way, that still the jobs, you're going to need say, the automated car. Now think of a UPS driver.
Right.
That's not going to work. He's got to get out, do the stuff, and do this stuff,
right.
and delivery stuff. So there is some things there that's never going to replace humans, except for the sales market that says it's important to do. There's a good side to it, and there's a negative side to it. But we're waking up to the negative side. Some people are to say, hey, we got to stop this now. We got to really consider what we're doing, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be here as soon as you want as a Terminator.
Right.
If we don't do something about this. So, we're really looking at it very seriously, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So you've got to plan for conceptual age, not the knowledge age. Because, when we were growing up, it was different to get a job than today. Everybody and their brother's got a doctorate now or whatever. You got to have this. And you got kids coming home to live at the house and can't pay college dues. And you're realizing that we're so modern.
Expensive.
Yeah. So the air conditioning guy, the plumber, we should be like the Europeans, vocational type schools too. But but here in the South, and especially across the country, when you hear the word vocational, that usually means, oh, your kid's not smart or this. That's wrong. I mean, kids should be hands-on, doing things, creative. I mean, study our history of our country in different times in education. It's really fascinating. We've never number one like everybody says, but we had something that they got out, this creative spirit that we taught kids, and be critical thinkers. So when they got old enough in the university model, they could do a lot. And now the world's caught up with us, our university model. So the gross product of the world has changed. So what are we doing in our universities versus the other universities in the world? And what type of students are we going to put out of college? What are they going to be? That's a big question. So 30 years from now, it's going to be real interesting.
Wow. Well, how many students do you have now?
We froze at 60. We can go to 72. We keep it small. That's a faculty decision. Quality versus quantity. there's a magic number. Usually they say for a kid like our type style learner, they're equal to 4 with the energy they produce. So it's like that's 240 kids. But in a campus like ours, that's about right. We're in an old schoolhouse. It's a historical home, the old Weiss homestead here in Greenville. And that's a teacher's vote. You could have 150 kids if they're all learn the same style. School can run really smooth. You can have 30 kids and be the 30 kids from hell with their learning style. So it's all about styles and players, and like I call them players, how they come on. Our job is to take a 1-star, turn them into a 2-star, a 3-star into a 4-star, and build them up. And you need, like we call it drafting, have 3 or 4 5-stars. Those kids do pretty well. They're going to survive without any they're bright dyslexics. They're going to do this. It's the other kids behind that are maybe more severe in their language. You draft them 8 to 2. They pick up, they follow the other kids and role models and stuff. So we do that with the kids.
Interesting.
And we look at a lot of analytics when putting our classes together.
Wow, okay.
Are they a high-end verbal class? Are they what we call receptive language or auditory processing? We figure them out, what they're doing. That's why we do a lot of field trips and the different learning styles. So you're trying to build a class off each other. Like whatever your weaknesses are, we're going to try to counter that with another kid that has the strengths.
Okay.
So you feed off each other. And that's really cool. I mean, there's so much to learn with different kids. I like a school that has the guy sitting beside me's kid is the CEO of whatever, BMW.
Right.
Next guy's kid, he's just a kid of a janitor in school.
Right.
Those 2 kids come together, all of a sudden they're helping each other. And they see the world differently and stuff. So, I think schools should have cerebral diversity.
That's fantastic.
Not racial, but cerebral. Racial is important, but cerebral is where the world's going right now. Different ways you look at a problem from many angles, and put that team together in corporation, and things happen. It's called the corporate IQ dollar.
Right. Okay. All right. Where do you see the school going?
That's interesting. I got a few more years. I hope it stays where it is, what we do. We don't want to grow up. I've worked with several schools, Camperdown, other schools. You grow up just like an adult. How do you creating a school is easy. It's maintaining, and stability is the one thing. But how do you maintain that, like the Stanford marching band? They just take themselves not seriously. How do we not take ourselves seriously and know this is fun and create the attitude? I'll show you how old I am. MASH, Hawkeye.
Yeah, of course.
That's what we try to create, that atmosphere, and don't lose it. And so you've got to be careful of becoming too successful.
Okay.
And don't read your own press clippings.
Right.
And that's what happens in schools.
No, that's so true. That's so true.
That's a big thing with schools. You're only as good as your last kid you taught, and you only teach one kid at a time. That's all you care about. Right. We can have all the success in the world, but if we're not succeeding with George, that's all that matters to you. Right. So teachers, one kid at a time. Right. And every year is a new year. Like Hinduism, I'm the destroyer, preserver, creator. Every year, new year. So forget your last year's. It's like a team. It's all new dynamics each year.
True. That's
so
true.
Schools revamp. So if we have, say, George and his group, they're 3rd graders, and we really unlock the code, we're code breakers in the reading. Well, obviously they can do more now. So the teacher that makes their lesson plans the same every year could be harmful to George, not helpful. So every year we have to recreate our lesson plans because this class has improved.
Right.
So now they've improved in their language. They can take in more with written expression and reading.
Right.
So you got to change your curriculum.
Wow.
And that's very hard. That's why schools like us are far and few in between, because your teachers demand so much out of them. And it's a lot. And like I think you've seen me at a meeting, kids don't come first. Teachers come first. That team is so important. It's like oil, byproducts gasoline. Your child's gasoline, but that oil, don't mess with.
Right.
You keep that team together. It's keeping the faculty together is really important.
Right.
They know things and stuff. And it's just like business team together. And so it's really important that it's a grind. But the teacher's got to like it, and changing and stuff like that. And you get to, and the other part is you can do a podcast every day. It's a new person.
Right.
It's new creation.
Right.
Same thing with kids.
Right.
You give those teachers that freedom to license to do. Public schools do a really fantastic job. And people blame them a lot, but the problems that we've created today are sort of outreaching the public school to keep up with. So they're not catching up, and it's not their fault. It's these problems, but I do believe the public schools will catch up and things. But the idea I compete with them for as recruiting teachers, I give them creative licensing, like an artist. That's the big difference.
Right.
I can't pay the same,
right.
but people think our price tag's high, but it's not when you look at how many faculty members we have. And each child gets a 1-to-1, 2-on-1 tutorial, which is reading, breaking down the English language.
Right.
That reading then skill sets go back to content teachers. So those teachers are talking to the other teachers to see where they're at. Right. So I can stretch George in a class.
Right.
The teacher says he's ready to read this level. Okay, stretching.
Wow.
So we're always stretching and constant feedback on a kid.
One last question. If someone hears you today and says, I would love to start a school like this.
I get that question a lot.
Yeah. You're like, don't do it.
Yes. I'm one of very few guys.
What would
I came back to town and I was retired sort of and stuff. And Jack Frazier was nice to me. And we took one of his old buildings. We started the ACC, Academic Coaching Center. And one thing led to another. Ashley Hibbets, were doing their kids. Says, why don't you start a school? Oh, great. I need that like a hole in my head. And I started a school. And it's like a puppy in the window. It grew into a Great Dane. And now to maintain it. But there's a lot of things you got to go through. Most schools are started by parents, not by a individual head that says, hey, I think I can build a school. And so basically we're like Moneyball. We're the Oakland A's. Camperdown had like a $5 million budget. Christchurch had a $17 million budget. We had $175,000 when we started.
Wow. You had, 4 kids, right?
4 kids. Oh, yeah. The Mormon family across the street had more students, children than we did. We always told them to play at recess or walk across our yard.
Go in the yard, make it look like
so we were bigger. But you grow in a certain way, but it's a lot of fun. Now I sort of regret some things because the teachers then, we said, when we had nothing to lose, it was so much fun. Now we're established. We've got roots in the town. We're about $1.6 million budget, and it's turning into what I don't want to turn into, that fun. We had nothing to lose. It was so much fun. And we always said these days we'll cherish. But at the time you think it's the hell you're going through, but it's great.
Wow,
that's
a good
school
lesson for entrepreneurs or building any business, right?
Because there's that time that happens. There's
you
patterns.
got nothing to lose,
But then once you got something to lose, you start changing.
Right.
That was fun. The biggest thing I've ever done in my life was to close a school. And that was an international boarding school. My job was sent to close it. They're about $4 million in debt, corruption. And I had to do some work that it was like I was the captain of the Titanic, but we had a job to do, hired to do, and find out the corruptions. And, the school closed, and I was probably the most hated guy in Vermont that year. It was 5 years I was there to try to do certain things. But, all the other schools in New England came to my rescue. We placed kids. Leroy Merritt offered us $1 million to keep it open. We said no because it wouldn't sustain itself. He was looking out for his grandchild, rightly so. But no, Leroy, we're not going to do it. I think I'm the only Erskine. I remember when I did fundraising for Erskine. You gave $1 million back? I said, yeah. And that's one thing in Greenville when we were raising money for Camperdown. We always said, don't be a glutton. Sometimes once you get to a certain point, you don't need that. You want to share to the community. It's just like, why does Princeton need, with a $20 billion endowment, someone gives them $300 million?
Right.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But it's prestige and that elitist type thing. And so I think it was from Gladwell, Princeton. He's a big guy. I listen to a lot on education. But so they that year they spin off $2.1 billion off that interest on that. They spend maybe $400 million on a new building. They still put $700 million back into the endowment. It's a money machine. It's a cash cow.
Right.
I mean, so people have to look at that. I mean, we know we're a blue-collared school. We're trying to get an endowment. We'd like it to be free for all kids. My goal, if anyone listened to this, I'd like to have somebody give me a Willy Wonka ticket. For kids who are orphans or an orphanage or a foster child, give them a ticket and bankrolling.
What would that
Raise
look like?
money. People getting together and saying, let's talk to the people that know some kids that might have some issues. They have no parents. Because what happens to them when they're 18?
So one kid,
his education's bankrolled.
So how many years?
For us, it'd be 8 years, then high school, and then college, wherever they choose to go, whatever. But say he has a learning style difference that needs to be addressed. They don't get help. So that's one of my big things.
Wonka need? I mean, how big is that need? Is it
well,
one,
I did an idea with this with Andre Agassi. So when he did his school, we were raising money for kids grade by grade. But if you completed a school, he'd pay for your college. And you got to be, certain standards, good student, don't get in trouble, that type of stuff. And he was able to do it. Star Power. Andre was very community minded. We'd like to do that here in town. There's a great podcast called Food Fight, and it's about Vassar College in Bowdoin. And where you put your money at, and wiggle rooms. We have no wiggle rooms. There's another school. I'm Ohio State. I call them Michigan. That's my old school.
Right.
And it's very close to me. They're good. In order to have a rivalry, you got to have respect. I respect them very much. But their branding is a little different than our branding and what we do. And we're Vassar. They're Bowdoin. They have chefs that cook. Food's important, but we have just crummy lunch food. They have that, but we'd rather put our money somewhere else in the school.
Right.
And we make no apologies for that. We'd rather focus more on the education side.
Right.
But every school's different and their values. But we're like Vassar and Food Fight. Okay. It's a great podcast by Madeline Godwell. And it shows you the money, how it works. And so if you're taking basically 90% of your student body are paying cash people, and 10% of that money that comes in your endowment, you can pay for kids who don't have privileges to go.
Right.
But what if you take your endowment and you spend for 40% of your student body to be kids that can't pay on Pell Grants at university? Now that's different for wiggle room. You got to compete for those wealthy kids, but they pay full tuition. But, how do you go when the Vassar's got, lobster for dinner, lobster for this? So now for Vassar, if they lose some of those rich kids, recruiting wise, they're in trouble.
Right.
So think of that.
Right,
so we're more like Vassar.
Okay.
We're going to put our money here. We're going to do this, but we wanted to try to all kids there. We run a lot like Mayberry. We'll work with people. We'll do things. I've had parents that, owe me money from 3 years ago, and they finally pay up.
Oh, wow.
So we work with people. We don't charge interest. I mean, I think school should be free for all kids. I mean, I'm lucky and blessed, but easy come, easy go.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So.
In closing, if you had some kid who's 18 listening to you here and says, "Hey, I want to start a business. I want to do something. I want to make a change."
Yeah.
What advice?
If he's 18, I'd want to know everything you've done up to this point, and don't be afraid to fail.
Okay.
Do not be afraid. Just let the dice roll, but think it through. Analyze your strengths, where your weaknesses, and find people that can help you in your weaknesses. And then you create a team around you. And don't be afraid to fail. I mean, fail with a product. Right. A lot of times you guys have good products, but they don't know how to market it.
Right.
So don't be afraid that someone can help you with your idea. And you got to trust people, and you need to figure out how to always improve your product, how to change it as the times change. If you don't,
of course,
you won't last. I mean, just like in education, we have to adapt
to
different things and stuff like that. So
fantastic.
That's
I've learned a lot. Well, thank you so much, Dana.
Thanks, sir.